Alright, I'm going to give people a minute or so to join the podcast before we begin. Before we begin, I would also like to shout out White Bat Audio. That's who I use for background music for streams, so shout out to him. Dope ass channel. Definitely check it out. I'll link it as well. But yeah, we'll give people a minute and then I'll begin with answering the question for our first episode of the podcast, which after this one, most likely I will feature guests from here on out. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's give people a second to tune in and then we'll begin. If we get any like really good questions, by the way, during the podcast, I will answer them on air as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and start, and we'll start with checking out some of the comments I saw, and then I also posted today, so I'll check that post as well at the end. But first question: if a character is quote above logic, how high does that character scale? So, logic should entail things that can be measured, defined, mathematically explained in some form of measurement, dimensionality, things of that nature, right? Beyond logic would be beyond those measurements, so it should be outerversal. So if a character, and when logic becomes tricky for scaling is when you see things like, by the way, sorry if I sound weird, I'm getting over a cold, but if you're above logic, sometimes that's like hyperbole in writing. Like they use it to describe something, so you have to be careful with hyperbole. But if it's pretty concrete above logic, due to that, meaning by proxy that it scales above things of measurement, should be outerversal. What does high outerversal mean to you, and what tier would you use or create to describe beings even further than that? High outer, I think it's just something to quantify on the normal or baseline outerversal. So something that we know for sure is like meets the prerequisites for outerversal or beyond all forms of dimensionality conceptually. If it meets that standard, transcends again, and probably layer or two after that. Everything after that I would consider high outerversal. I don't know if I'd create a completely new tier to address something above that. I don't think it matters at that point. Like, we're just arguing about who do we think is like stronger to an absurd degree. It's fun, but I think people get a little too caught up in it. So I don't think I would go out of my way to like invent a new tier for that. So, next one. How strong is Makuro video? Would be a blessing to the community. She's underrated as a character. Agreed. I will definitely add Makuro to the list of characters I will do a video on for explanations in the future. Opinions on Transformer scaling and Godzilla scaling. My experience with both that I can speak on. Transformers, I have read up on Unicron, and he's an absolute menace to society with very good scaling. You could even argue outerversal scaling. So characters that scale to him, off him, things like that, they should be very impressive. Godzilla, I know him from the Marvel side. I know him from what Chuck showed me, and I've gone over material with Chuck. So for that, he's pretty impressive. Like Marvel, easily thrown hands with Herald tiers. So besides that, I don't have like any definite opinion on either. I will be doing more in-depth research on both, probably because of my Who Can Beat series in the upcoming future. Now, let me go ahead and read the live chat and see if there's any questions I can answer now. All right. The battle with Uncle Sam and Pennywise. Hairball. Pennywise and Uncle Sam will be later in the chat whenever I get to, or later in the live, whenever I get to that question when it was proposed. Let me see. When will there be more Kengan scaling? Not sure. Last couple videos didn't do as well, so I don't know when the next time I'll cover that verse. Alright, most are just looking forward to the questions being answered, so I'll do those for now. Next up is a realm and being Sidorak outside natural law include being beyond the divine creator Marvel. Sidorak is just shown to be ridiculously more powerful than most of Marvel. Good question. No. He is not above the divine creator. Or the one above all. Those tiers are still above him. Natural law just means the natural multiverse, which is governed by beings like the Living Tribunal, and it's specifically stated that they are only governing the multiverse, so anything outside the natural multiverse or the natural law and order and reality is outside of that impact and control. So Sidorak does scale high because of that, but no, he doesn't scale above the one above all or divine creator or any of the insanely high tiers in Marvel. But that is a good question. What speed tier would be walking around in a realm beyond space and time and dimensions? What would that be? So if it's just time and space in terms of the first shut up, GB. I see you in the comment section. Shout out to GB for not hosting. Everyone peer pressure him in the chat to co-hosting the next live. But when you look at the speed tier for regular space and time, that is like at best like inaccessible if you were to put time at 0. But if it's conceptually beyond dimensionality in terms of space and time, then that would be a relevant speed. You can't even calculate it at that point. That would be the highest tier speed. Out of all fictional characters I've read, in my opinion, who is the fastest? I guess I would talk about characters whose speed feats were crazy to me. I know an Ostrander run. Spectre had a crazy speed feat where he had to instantly cross like high outer versal realms instantly. Obviously, there's characters narratively faster than him in that verse, but that's one of the first impressive ones I saw. In terms of now in the new verse in Marvel with Mephisto messing with everything in Heroes Reborn, we did see the Blur or whatever have some ridiculous speed feats. But the high tier, of course, characters in fiction, the highest tiers. So, for example, I'm not saying the strongest verse ever, but characters from like the King verse, they would scale to the highest tiers of speed. So it's kind of a weird question. I don't know. When you get into the high tiers, it becomes like an irrelevant debate at that point. GB says we're going to have to do MCU Cap versus Shang-Chi. What do y'all think about that? Let me know in the chat if we should do that. Can you scale some Fate characters? I will likely add Fate to the channel down the line. Could Thanos beat the Marvel villains if they replace the heroes? No. Y'all saw what happened with Big Doom ran into Thanos, right? And asked him if he had the gauntlet, and he said, no, I don't need it. And he said, oh, okay, run that spine then, bitch. So, nah, I think the Marvel villains would get Thanos up out of there pretty fast if they had to. With Doom probably spearheading the movement. Uncle Sam versus True Form Pennywise. Here we go. Here's the question we've had and that we've been waiting for. So, I'll cut right to the chase. Uncle Sam is a being that exists on the icon plane. This was stated in the Ostrander run to be outside of even the Judeo-Christian pantheon and mythos in the DC verse. So, like, Spectre didn't really have any power going up there. The only reason he could brawl a little bit is he himself is part icon as, like, a Grim Reaper type figure in, like, American history. But anyways, the icon plane is this wild-ass realm. DC Comics, kind of obscure. Uncle Sam beat the shit out of Spectre. His agents are, like, beyond concepts. They themselves can battle the same Spectre that gave Michael a good fight. It's just absurd. Then you have True Form Pennywise that can consume the Dark Towers with the Dark Towers, literally containing the idea of size itself, transcendence, all that. So if these two juggernauts were to clash, I mean, like, Pennywise literally scales above Stephen King. Stephen King, as the character, the writer, literally said he would die if Pennywise ran up on him. I think Pennywise would beat Uncle Sam. First L Uncle Sam has taken on my channel. It is what it is. He took it on the podcast, but Uncle Sam would probably lose to True Form Pennywise. Scale the Star Wars cosmology. So that's kind of a tricky question. We'd kind of have to look at, like, EU separately from canon and how those cosmologies compare. Obviously, EU stronger. In canon, I do believe StarWars.com confirmed that the Force contains dualities, concepts like time, space, all that encompasses it. So father-son should scale to that, and daughter, of course, as they are embodiments of the Force, with the father embodying the balance of the Force. There used to be in the EU things like Star Wars Infinities where there was different timelines in the multiverse. And this is one of the reasons that EU was so much stronger, is they had, like, established different pantheons. But in canon Marvel, Star Wars has been shown, so you can argue Star Wars is a part of the Marvel cosmology as well, which amps it. But I would have to do actual videos on the cosmology because it's two separate cosmologies if we consider EU and canon. Now, let me real quick look at the live comments. Yeah, it was dumb. I remember one time in terms of SCP, I proposed an SCP and they didn't approve it. And my SCPs are way better written than what I've seen so far from what I've seen on SCP. So that's why I haven't really looked into it. There's some haters. Next question. Splash, do you have Dooku over Windu? No. Prime Windu should probably be above Prime Dooku. Although, obviously, I could argue in the case of Dooku. But objectively, Prime to Prime, Windu's probably a little bit above. Because Dooku's Prime is a little murky. But, nah, I don't really have him over Windu. But he's very relative. Who do you think is the better duelist? Guts or The Witcher? I don't have an opinion. I haven't read Berserk. What if Dante was in Skyrim? He would get murked on the block horribly. Let's see. Power of Composite Goku. Jump Force makes it outer versal. If you get into Record of Ragnarok, would you scale the series? I've already had a versus battle with one of the characters. I've read some of it. Up to Jack the Ripper verse. I want to say it was Hercules. I've read up to that battle in the verse. Let's see if there's any more questions that I had. Hold on. Give it 1 second. No, I think that's it for these questions for this episode. Hold on. There might be 1 or 2 more, but I think that might be it. We will check, and then I'll double check the newest post. Yo, Heartbreaker, if you really want to see Berserk content, add me on Discord, slide the donation, we'll make it work. Add me on Discord, let's talk business. Maybe I'll add Berserk. If you got that shit tatted on you, I'm sure you'd be willing to donate for content. Like, I'm just being honest, big dog. Like, that should definitely be a possibility. But let's look at, let's see if we can go to other posts. I might, since this is kind of being problematic, I'll pull it up on my phone real quick. Some bonus questions we were asked. Okay. How would you use scale up to Marvel and DC? Right now, I'm not finished with my reread, but in terms of like pinning down the obscure highest characters in the verse, but I can make arguments to challenge Harold Tier at the top of the verse. Is there any specific franchise you would like to cover in a power scaling video that isn't talked about much in the verses or power scaling community? This is a great question. I think I might end with this one. I 100% have stuff. I have Bleach. There are people that cover Bleach, but I do think my Bleach content will be unique. I'm not coming into the game with sharing metas or looking at old metas and agreeing with them. I'm bringing my own flavor to it, so I definitely think my Bleach content will be unique, especially with the other verses I can bring into matchups like Star Wars and Yu and things like that. I just have so much versatility. I think I'll really make interesting Bleach content. Yu Hakusho, that's absolutely one I want to add. Obviously, I'm going to be making a lot of content on it. It's an iconic anime, iconic manga. It did so much for the culture. It's such a major part of the culture. It deserves its shine in terms of the big stage for scaling and all that. Hopefully my channel reaches that one day and I can have that opportunity. And I'll be able to promote UU the way I want to. Finally, I think another verse I'm thinking about really giving a bigger platform to and making consistent content for in the long haul is Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson was another series kind of like Harry Potter that was big in my childhood, so I definitely never mind it when I go to cover it. And my other Percy content did well in terms of views. So I'm looking at it like, that's not something I would mind doing. It's content based on stuff that, I have fond memories of, great times in my life, and being able to cover it would be a blast. There's so much content to do because that verse goes into so many different pantheons, so many different books. So I'd 100% enjoy making that a mainstay on the channel with a lot of content on it. So let me know if you guys are interested in the Percy Jackson verse and if I go into a deep dive on it, or if you want to see UU or Bleach. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up the stream. We will be streaming every weekend. I'll have guests on like Chuck, GB, once I got his contract signed and done, members of the coffee shop and stuff like that. But thank you guys for watching. It's been your boy YFV, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.